we might as well kick off. Guys, good afternoon and welcome to our webinar this afternoon, joint webinar with Procore and SustainIQ. And we're going to be exploring the topic, why data is key to good ESG in the construction and fit out sectors. And look, because Procore and SustainIQ are both tech companies, digital solutions, helping you guys out on the projects. We're going to take a closer look today at the role that we will play in helping you guys capture that information and ultimately report it to your stakeholders today. So Tony and myself will get into the discussion shortly. Very, very quickly though, we're going to just do a quick poll. If everyone can just maybe answer those questions there quite quickly on screen. And we'll feed the results back at the end of the webinar. Really, we just want to know, have you started reporting on your ESG yet? And if so, how far down the road are you with it? Are you quite established? Are you just getting started? Or have you nothing in place just yet, but keen to make a start? Also, how you currently capture it. Are you using a tech solution? Are you using spreadsheets, paper-based or other means? And then what is your biggest challenge? Which is a big thing for a lot of companies. So if you could just make us aware of those. If we haven't listed some of the challenges on the list, please drop them into the chat and we can pick them up in the discussion as well. Okay, thanks for that. And while you're all answering those questions, Tony, I think me and you could do a brief introduction. I'll let you introduce yourself first for those that haven't met you or indeed worked with Procore yet.
Perfect. So thanks, Liam, and hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So yeah, as Liam said, my name's Tony Harbour, and I head up the technology partner program for Procore across the whole of the EMEA region. So my role really is talking to, to tech companies very similar to SustainIQ about building out integrations that help serve our customers better. You know, connecting all of that data and solutions into Procore to give them ease of access to all of that data across a kind of single source of truth. Not a word that I love using, but I'm going to use it in this instance. A little bit about Procore for those of you that don't know what we do. So Procore is a cloud-based construction management platform. We started back in 2002 in the US, and essentially the whole idea was that, you know, construction is very fragmented in terms of reporting, you know, conversations and just general data sharing. And the whole idea behind Procore was to stop that and was to allow for the entire kind of project stakeholders to connect, collaborate and share data in a single platform. And that's really a key word from Procore's perspective, is platform. So within the Procore platform itself, we actually have 4 tools that cover the entire construction lifecycle. So we have a pre-construction tool, which really deals with bidding and tendering. Project management is the core tool within Procore, which really deals with anything from quality and safety, inspections, snagging, RFIs, that type of stuff. We also have 2D and 3D drawing viewers, documents tools, etc. We also have what we call a workforce management tool, which deals with movement of construction people on a site. So essentially populating timesheets and time cards. And again, being that kind of connected platform that we are, we would have integrations with site access solutions. So anytime a contractor walks on site, that data is logged, automatically populates time cards. And we also then have a finance tool. So within our financial tool, we're not an accounting system or an ERP. As I'm sure many of the people on the webinar today realise, a lot of construction projects are still managed on Excel spreadsheets, bizarrely. So we allow that data to be uploaded into Procore, manage it in a real-time way. And really where the marketplace that I work with sits into Procore is that, you know, the marketplace was developed by Procore in 2016 to really allow our customers to connect either existing technology solutions that they're already using into Procore to allow that kind of seamless transition of data, or to keep up to date with the trends that are in the market. So things like ESG, climate tech, climate data, equipment tracking, AI, and AI is a huge topic at the moment. So they want to keep up with the latest trends. That marketplace allows our customers to connect those new solutions into Procore and generally into their kind of day-to-day lives. So that's a very brief kind of intro into Procore, and yeah, really looking forward to getting into this discussion.
Brilliant, Tony, thank you. Yeah, and guys, SustainIQ lives within the Procore marketplace that Tony was talking about there. Very quickly, I'm Liam McEvoy, one of the co-founders of SustainIQ. We are the all-in-one ESG and sustainability reporting software solution. So ultimately, we make it easy for our customers to report on their environmental, on their economic, on their social value performance. And by integrating actually with Procore, we're making it even easier again for those shared customers that use both platforms to capture and report on their information. So we'll take a look at both a little bit more when we get into the discussion. I think what I always like to do very quickly, Tony, if you don't mind, is just make sure everyone on the call today is aware of what ESG actually is and what we're talking about today. And I think it's good just to make sure we're all on the same page. So very quickly, the E obviously stands for environment, the S stands for social, and the G stands for governance. And whenever we talk about ESG data, sustainability data, all of that type of stuff, what we're actually talking about is typically your waste management performance data that you're generating throughout the project and throughout all the different stages of work. We're looking at your carbon emissions, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 carbon emissions that again are being generated across the job, biodiversity, net gain, water usage, all of your typical environmental performance stuff that a lot of you already do. We're just looking to capture that and pull that into the system so you can easily report on it. We're also looking at the social data, the social value data. So typically there, we're talking about maybe apprenticeship and placement opportunities, all of those opportunities that you guys are creating across your projects because of your projects, and both directly through yourselves, maybe indirectly through your supply chain. We're maybe looking at diversity and inclusivity initiatives, health and well-being, training and development, safety, all of that, but also then stakeholder relations. So your engagements with local community groups, again, which some of you do brilliantly throughout the projects. Maybe it's charitable partners, charitable donations, school, college, university engagements, and volunteering and so on as well. So it's all of that social performance and all of that impact that you guys are having out on all of your different sites and your different projects. And it's really, really important now that you track that and you are able to report on that. And then in terms of G and in terms of governance, I suppose, look, it's a big topic. There's a huge focus at the minute on supply chains. So that's really looking at your supply chains, your procurement processes and the impact that those are having right across your subcontractors, maybe your suppliers of products and materials. We're maybe looking at the products and materials that are actually being used, where they're being sourced from. Are they responsible? Are they sustainable products and materials? There's a big focus at the minute, as I say, on carbon. So the embodied carbon of those products and materials are now all coming into play. And we're starting to see all of that appear in tenders and bids in terms of the questions that are appearing. So that's the start of that journey. And it's important now that you start putting processes in place to capture that information. So there's a lot of data there, and some of you guys are on some big jobs, medium-sized jobs, but when you look right across the full length of the project, there's huge amounts of data there to capture from lots of different places now as well, and lots of different people are involved. So it is a big topic, but when you look at the direction of travel within our industry, it is having an impact already. So it is important that we all understand what it is, what the direction of travel of the industry itself, and what we need to get in place to ensure that you've access to all of that data within your own organizations. So look, hopefully that explains ESG and what we're talking about today, particularly the data that we're looking to capture throughout Procore and SustainIQ. Okay, so again, very quickly, and before we get into the discussion, I think from the outset, we'll just explain a little bit more about the integration that SustainIQ has currently got with Procore. It's constantly moving, Tony, isn't it? It's constantly under review, and we're constantly developing it more and more. But yeah,
tech never stands still, Liam, that's for sure.
Never does, Tony. It's crazy. But oh, I went the other way. So we started talking with you guys, Tony, probably over a year ago, maybe 18 months ago now, and we agreed we were keen to do an integration and to live within your marketplace. And we started life out as a it's an embedded app, very simple sort of integration. And again, we've seen the benefits of that, particularly to our shared customers. And so we've continued to invest in that. So typically there, when you go into Procore and you log into Procore, you also log into SustainIQ. So that in itself streamlines that process. It reduces the amount of time required jumping between different systems. So it just makes it a lot more efficient for the user. When you set up site data, new project data on Procore, it's been pulled through to SustainIQ to prevent duplication. Again, very, very similar with the vendor information around supply chain. And then there's a document library both in Procore and in SustainIQ, so we can pull and push lots of data between the two systems. So typically waste management, transfer notes, and also maybe delivery dockets. And that's beneficial, particularly for the Procore procurement team, or even the surveying team that's maybe living in the Procore environment most of their working day. And they're able to very quickly cross-check documents and invoicing and all of that, delivery dockets, just to make sure everything adds up without having to leave the Procore environment to do that. And we've got that single sign-on, obviously, to facilitate all of that. So currently, that's the level of the integration. There's a lot of pulling and pushing of data across projects and the different vendors and supply chain as well. And we are committed now to deepening that integration further. And we are looking at how we can do that, particularly with waste management, and also carbon emissions as well. So certainly throughout the rest of 2023, we'll be investing in that to deepen that integration, social value and supply chain as well. I suppose, Tony, even before we get into the discussion, and you've already touched on your marketplace, but I would always say, like, I don't know how you guys have managed to do this, right? But you've created the most incredible space for companies like us to come in, and you really do promote collaboration. It's a bit of a safe space, I would say. So not only are we integrated, obviously, with yourselves, but we are now also integrated with other companies that are within the Procore environment, the marketplace, which is incredible. And I think, look, you guys obviously have seen it, and we've certainly seen it, the value that all adds to the client, to the shared customer. But you've really, that marketplace it's unreal, and particularly for a company like ourselves, just in terms of the support and the resource that you guys do provide to encourage the integration, but then to encourage the collaborative working as well. And as you say, it's always moving, and we love that. So there's always back and forth. We're always meeting more and more of the Procore team, and discussing ways to kind of, as I say, deepen the integration and continue that sort of that investment in it. So it definitely is a very worthwhile, and again, would encourage anyone today to check it out. There's a huge amount of companies in it.
I appreciate that, Liam. I mean, look, I think the key thing from Procore side of things is, you know, we call our developer portal an open portal. And I think some people use that term very, very loosely, and it's open. But Procore, we generally are open. You know, I think we've got a big belief that we want as many people as possible connected into Procore. You know, we've mentioned data. We're probably going to talk a bit more about data, but there is so much data generated on a construction site nowadays that you've got to have access to that data, and you've got to have access to it easily. So the marketplace allows companies to easily build apps. You know, there's no pressure on any of the companies that we work with to build a really deep integration. You know, we can phase it out for resource purposes or whatever. But for us, it's very much about being as open as we possibly can, collaborating with as many companies as we can, and essentially giving construction companies the tools that they need to complete the jobs easier. And I think that's missing from a lot of people. A lot of people, it's very much a case of, you must use this, you can't use anything else. You can't collaborate with those guys because they're, you know, competition. We have a number of people on the marketplace that do compete with us, but because they use their solutions on a site in a different format and a different way, connecting into Procore just makes sense. So, you know, we've tried to make it as easy and as seamless as possible. And so it's great to see you've had a good experience. I know it's been a good experience working with you guys. So, you know,
absolutely. And I think that phased approach as well, never mind the tech side of it, but even the relationship aspect, but, you know, between ourselves and yourselves, it really just it allows for that to develop that, I suppose, trust and confidence and so on as well. So very good. Well, look, again, we just wanted to sort of discuss that integration and sort of explain a little bit how that works currently for our shared Procore and SustainIQ customer base, and the benefits that can bring in terms of streamlined processes on site for the project teams. But Tony, I think, look, we'll get into the discussion here and sort of have a bit more of a chat, particularly around the data aspect of it. But I suppose, look, I'd be interested to know, even from we're an ESG solution. We work in this world, but you know, you guys obviously global, and you're working with lots and lots of different customers. In terms of those main drivers that you see that are pushing ESG up the agenda, is that something you're seeing a lot more, you're hearing a lot more? And is there any, you know, you guys obviously working across different regions, different jurisdictions, are you seeing the trends as well?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, I've been in and around the industry for a long time, the construction industry, and I think there's always been little pockets of, you know, flashes of sustainability kind of being at the forefront of a lot of construction that's going on. And I think it's evolved a lot. There was always, you know, the Green Building Council kind of came up with various things. BREEAM came up with Code for Sustainable Homes. The BREEAM lead got involved with it. There's always been legislations or something going on to kind of push sustainability up the agenda. But I think where ESG has kind of taken over is that it's got bigger than just sustainability. So where, you know, we're saying it's encompassing the social element of it. And I think where ESG really focuses, not just the apprenticeship side of things that you spoke about, but social impacts on projects. Yeah. There used to be a time that a construction project would just go up and it was, well, it doesn't really matter what goes on around the local kind of community. We're putting a project here because it was all about generating revenue. I think now there's a really big emphasis on what's this going to do for the local community? Is it going to provide jobs? Is it, you know, is it going to be sustainable for people to live in this area? Are we going to be able to provide something back in the community? So there's a wider element from a social aspect, and the governance thing is huge. I think the big thing for me is, I think Grenfell, and I know people use Grenfell as a really big thing, and they talk about it a lot within these type of discussions, but I do think it had a really big impact on how people thought, not just people within construction, but you know, the wider community and the wider kind of public, thinking about what materials we use on a construction site. You know, was that fit for purpose? Where did it come from? Who signed this off? And how? So I think the sustainability element has not just become, well, let's talk about a green building and have we got recycled materials being used here? Have we got a green roof and solar panels? It's more about that whole encompassing thing. And, you know, I remember going back to when I was working on construction sites, and I think it was Procore 21 or the school kind of redevelopments that were going on. And we were involved heavily in the MEP design on some of these schools. And we'd go in and talk to you know, companies about, well, what do you want to do? And we want to put solar panels on the roof. Brilliant. When's the sun out? When the schools aren't there. And it was literally ticking a box to say, we've got a green school, we've got it there. Right. So I think it's more about that whole encompassing, you know, side of sustainability that's really kind of driving it forwards. Yeah,
no, you're absolutely right. Funny, I remember when I first sort of seen the shift, particularly from the social aspect. I think the environmental has always been there a little bit long. Certainly from the social aspect. I remember sitting again back in the days I was working with contractors, and the client was there, and the client made it very, very clear that, you know, as a contractor, you're going to be on site first. You're going to be representing us first in the community. So how you, I suppose, conduct yourselves with this local community is very much a reflection on us, and we will be here long after you've gone. So really we need you to set the example and really have a positive impact during your time throughout the construction stage. And, you know, that was probably the first time I really noticed a client pushing the social aspect, and we're going back now, gosh, quite a while, but it was the first time I remember walking out thinking, wow, that's kind of changed the dynamic slightly from the contractor's perspective. And then, it's kind of evolved. Obviously, from there, social value has become
definitely
a big driver. I suppose as well. Like talking about those clients. I mean, it's a huge driver now for contractors. Even looking at
definitely
and like the bids, you know, and the questions that are now being asked and that need to be answered. And again, I think long gone are the days where in a tender. And I think this is important from a Procore and from a SustainIQ perspective, because I think we've a bit of responsibility in terms of helping our customers capture the information that they need, even for those other projects. But the likes of the tenders and the bids and the questions that are coming through now, it's kind of moved beyond tell us a nice story about all the wondrous things you've been doing on these jobs. They want proof, they want evidence, they want data, you know, and definitely we're seeing that, and we're hearing that more from those tendering and bid teams. They need.
Well, it's gone a lot more from, and again, going back to my days on site, it's gone a lot more from you'd put a tender in on a project and it'd go, forget the 25 lines above, straight to the bottom line figure. What's the cheapest? We'll go for that. It's gone like you said, for the full data. We see that a lot in Procore. We kind of, I think within the partner team, we see a lot of different trends. So we start to see requests from customers on what they want to see on the marketplace or type of integrations that they want to use. And you can start to put together trends. And the big thing for us at the moment is it's data on equipment usage on site, which links into sustainability and carbon capture. Materials management is another big thing that we get asked for a lot, and it's multi-stage tendering. It's where's the material source from? How can we kind of drill down more into the kind of materials that we're getting on a site? Is there material compliance happening on a construction site? Because it's great when you sign off these tenders, but if your subcontractor isn't delivering the right materials on a site, that's going to create all sorts of problems. So we're starting to see things like that coming through a lot more within Procore. So that's definitely a point that we're noticing a lot more of.
Yeah, no, totally. I'd agree. I think you sort of touched on it there as well, actually, just across the project, because one of the big drivers, I think, it's also a challenge. It's the amount of people, it's those different roles and responsibilities within the project team that now have a responsibility to report on sustainability, on ESG. They're either reporting in, or they now need access to the data to report back to a stakeholder, to a client, to a regulator. And again, over the years, the amount of people that are involved in that process is just, it's just snowballed, so they definitely do need, that digital solution, that tech solution that's going to help them easily capture this across it. And again, it's not even within maybe a principal contractor, it's the wider supply chain,
Exactly that. It's right the way from top to bottom. And I think, again, I touched on it again earlier, and you did exactly the same. The data now that's on a construction site is phenomenal. Not only from kind of pre-construction phase, but we get into details such as they want to use the telematics from from their plant machinery that's on a construction site. They want that information, the delivery dockets, delivery information that's being done on a construction site, IoT devices that have been installed. There's solutions out there that we're seeing a big rise on in wearables on a construction site. So, monitoring people's health on a construction site, which was never thought of at all. Even when the PPE element came in, the policing that used to be a real nightmare, but now you've got, that's just a given now. People do that. So, the wearable devices on where people are being located on a construction site. And a lot of people, I think, on sites are scared of that, because it's almost a case of, well, people are watching every little thing I do, but I don't think they see the bigger picture in why that data is actually being collected. It's all for a reporting functionality. And look, how can we make this better? What are we doing now that on the next project or the projects after that, we can do a lot better? And that's what this is all about.
Totally agree. And it's strange, actually. You mentioned the safety aspect. We're seeing it's almost parallel to that, and even when you look at tracking carbon emissions, where people feel it's a bit of a big brother kind of approach, but actually, the reality is no one really, well, certainly from an ESG perspective, it's not about speeding or anything like that. It is purely about miles and carbon that's been generated as a result. And but are you seeing that then? We're certainly seeing that, in terms of the personalities and how the different roles have sort of changed and are slowly starting to embrace sustainability. Even there, Tony, we've never probably had, when you go through all the different departments, probably the finance team would be one that we wouldn't have had a huge amount of contact. While in the last 18 months, that's completely flipped. We've never spoke to so many FDs, in our lives. So are you guys seeing that? You're seeing that those personalities evolve and embrace sustainability?
Yeah, definitely. And I think traditionally it would have been the main contractor's responsibility to look at sustainability on a construction site. That was their responsibility. They had a job and a duty to make sure that they were hitting sustainability targets, and that was done. As you said, it's gone right the way through that whole project now. People are much more conscious in, driving forward change. You're always going to get, the people that, I'm just here to do a job, I'm not really bothered. But I think it's almost it's almost ingrained now. And as I said at the beginning of this, that sustainability kind of buzz, it used to be a buzzword in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll talk about sustainability, we'll do this, that's great, we've hit our target, we're done. But I think it's so ingrained now in people talking about it, and talking about how carbon captures, how can we calculate the carbon we're using. Again, I'm kind of harping on when I was on the site, but even walking onto a construction site and somebody asking me for the first time, how did you get here?
Yeah.
Well, hang on, why does that matter to you? So we need to capture how you got here. Did you get trained? That's a given now. Just a standard straightforward thing, we'll just answer that. So all of that, it's definitely right the way through a construction project now. And I just think people are more aware of their surroundings and what they need to achieve.
I think so. And there's always personalities that maybe resist a little bit, but certainly we're even seeing now a real shift in the supply chain. So like deliveries coming. That's always been, and we'll probably jump into challenges, but that's always been a challenge from a carbon perspective, because typically those delivery vehicles don't sign in. They're technically not entering the full site, and they come in, they do a drop off, and they go. But we need to be reporting those delivery miles, those so, and we're starting to see a real shift there, where I think just basically every site they go to, no matter the contractor, no matter the logo at the gate, they're getting more and more used to providing this information. And even in terms of the accuracy of the information that they're providing, it's now look, there's pockets certainly down around London in the southeast, we're seeing a lot more sort of uptake. I suppose there are pockets where there's still a little bit of work to do, but definitely we're seeing those different parties.
I'd agree 100%. And I think I hark back to I always use this story quite a bit, but I hark back to a story when I was doing some work on when they were building the Olympic Village in London for the 2012 Olympics, and I remember they had a number of it was like it wasn't Meet the Supplier, it was like a design day where companies would come in, they would talk about what the Olympic Committee would come in and say how they wanted the project built, and you would sit in these meetings. And I always remember one meeting where they were talking about they wanted it to be the greenest games ever constructed, and we were all sitting there going, this is really good, and they were going to use the canals around East London to transport goods. And one of the guys in the room actually asked a question and said, that's great, I can get the stuff delivered on a barge, no problem at all, but what are you going to do about the 3,000 miles it's flown in from Asia?
That's right.
How are you going to calculate that? And there was kind of a bit of a silence in the room, and I think that element was never thought of. It was great, we've got it in the country, let's get it to site as sustainably as we can, and don't think about it. And I think, again, that's now been encompassed in it. So that whole life cycle carbon calculation is really being looked at more, which it never was. And I think that adds all to these delivery elements that are coming in. It's like, where does this come from? Well, there you go, there's my certificate, this is my green credentials, you've got it there.
Don't burst my bubble about that. The Olympic Stadium, that was definitely one of the big flagship projects for sustainability. There was a lot of stuff trialed and tested there that was first time ever, so it was but yeah, look, as always, when you sort of dive into a lot of them and you look at the value and you look at the impact, sometimes what seems a good idea initially doesn't. But
again, that's where we're talking about ESG. That's where this is where it's become better, because I think it's not just about the materials element of it, right? Sure. It's not just about the delivery, it's about the social impact, it's about the supply chain as a whole, it's encompassing everything. I think that's where this ESG topic is really being pushed up.
And it makes total sense, because to have a decision over here will no doubt have an impact over there, and we need the full picture so we can understand that. Tony, just we've already touched on quite a few of these, and the topic today is really around the data, and it's really looking at then what are those big challenges typically in those projects for those contractors. What are those challenges that project teams are facing? And look, we're now hitting them with ESG. They're already under pressure, time, budget, the whole lot, and we're now coming at them with another big piece of work. What are some of the challenges that you see, particularly for project teams, but for those projects as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned it before. It's data. It's the amount of data that these guys have at their fingertips, and just having access to it. And often that when we get companies sometimes coming to Procore, a lot of the time it's because they just need to digitize their processes and they want to get involved.
Yeah.
A lot of companies we get coming to Procore are a bit more experienced in kind of tech. So they come in and say, right, we're having a real disconnect we've got 4 or 5 different solutions. Nobody knows where to go to. We've got one person running to this person to get the data. We need to so for us, it's very much about having access to that data easily. Yeah. We're a big platform as Procore. We collect a lot of information across the entire build cycle, but at any one time, people can go into a particular tool and they can retrieve the data they want, or they can literally request the data and have it sent to them almost immediately. So for me, it's all about just getting access. And I think that's where a lot of these schemes really fall down, is that they almost become too hard for people to do. Yeah. So people just kind of, brush them to one side and think, well, I'll do what I need to do and we'll see if anything else comes of it. So I think now, just by giving people that data, it just takes away a lot of the challenges straight away. And you've probably seen that as well with, what you guys do.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there when you said access. And for us, that's why the integration with Procore was a no-brainer, because it has been a massive challenge for ESG, for sustainability as a whole. And, we talked about the different types of data that we now need access to. Typically all that non-financial reporting stuff, from waste management to carbon emissions, social value, all the supply chain stuff. And the problem is, for most organizations, all of that data lives in completely different places. In a lot of cases, it has in the past. And also a lot of people, I'm not going to pick on surveyors because that would be unfair, but a lot of procurement stuff potentially that would be maybe on a laptop or maybe sitting somewhere in a spreadsheet or that's siloed, and for no other reason than that person doesn't realize how important that piece of information might be to someone else in the project team.
But it's not just a siloed element as well. It's the fact that if somebody goes away on leave and he's the only guy that's got that data on his laptop, right, you've got to wait a week, run a deadline over, and you're right. Access is definitely the key thing. Yeah.
Big thing for us. And again, looking at all of those challenges, and then, as you say, looking at the amount of project data that's going into Procore, it makes sense that rather than then have that duplicated on another system over here for another team, that need it for a whole other set of reasons. It just makes sense to have it put in the primary system, Procore, and then us or whoever else within the marketplace needs access to that, we can integrate and pull it through for reporting.
Yeah, definitely. And reporting, I was just literally about to say that, so I'm glad you mentioned reporting. That's the key thing. So we see a massive uptake in people that join Procore that really utilize, we've got Power BI bedded in Procore, so our customers can build out reports on any of the tools, for example. And that's probably one of the most widely used tools that we've got in Procore, because great having the data, as we said, getting access to it, great, we've got access to it. Now, how do we read it? How do we look at it? How do we kind of interpret the data that we've got there? So by just giving simple, easy reports, that somebody at a click of a button every week, every month, whatever they want to set it up, you can click a report, you can have a report built out on your sustainability, your climate, safety, whatever it might be. It's a huge thing, just being able to report on this information.
Absolutely. And actually, again, following on from that, from even the knowledge and awareness kind of piece, like ESG is massive.
Yeah.
Everyone in the project team, they don't have to know every single thing about the E, the S, and the G.
Exactly.
They just need to know where they fit,
Yeah.
And that reporting piece is key to that. So they just need that piece of information so they can produce that report on that time for that person or that stakeholder.
Yeah, but I think the key thing to that is as well, not only previously it would have been, you said siloed before.
Yeah.
Every individual was very siloed, and I'm only interested in that bit of data. Because of the way that it's being reported and the way people can view that information now, I think they're becoming a little bit more aware of the other elements they not necessarily would have known about. And you're starting to see a bit of crossover now between the different trays and the different kind of levels on a project, where they're starting to take a real interest in in everything else, because they've got access to the data to see it. So if they can see it all, they're starting to say, well, hang on a minute, I can kind of maybe have an impact on that, or I can maybe help with this, or I can do this. So there's definitely a difference there as well.
No, there is. actually, even just following on from that, because again, one of the big challenges within ESG, within sustainability, has always been almost like a lack of methodology. You know, people say they need it, we need this, but everyone's doing it differently. Everyone's asking for different things all the time. And I suppose that's where we come in. SustainIQ provides with the 4 pillars, which provides a methodology so that people can easily report on that. But even then again, within Procore, because the information lives, you know, it's just so accessible. It just, even from a methodology aspect, which in itself, when followed, ensures that the data coming through, it's accurate, it's reliable, and you can stand over it. It's critical. It's just so important. And when we look at the direction of travel that this is having in the industry, even just looking at the legal drivers, you know, international and national level legislation, either that's already in or due to come in over the next few years, it's having a massive impact.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, right? We were talking about the difference between, you know, cross country and where, you know, globally, where kind of this is really having an impact now, where it differs country to country, you know, state to state in the US. It really does differ, but there's one overriding similarity between everything, is that carbon capture, reporting on that information is central to everything, regardless of what their focus is, if it's social governance or sustainability. There is a driver between all of them to have that data to report on all of that information. It doesn't matter what it is, but they're all in the same boat, that they want that data and they want to be able to report it.
And they want it now, Tony.
Exactly right. Yeah. And they want it up to date and accurate. And I think, you know, that's another key thing that I think people gloss over a lot, is up to date data. It's not just the data itself, it's the accurate, up to date stuff. It's not stuff that's a week, month, 2 months old. It's stuff that, you know, is up to date now, and you can report on that right away.
That's it. And even, the reporting aspect, and even just, you know, particularly within the environmental, maybe more so than the S and the G, but the cost implications of a lot of the stuff, particularly carbon, has been monetized. So having that up-to-date real-time information, it just flags issues, which ultimately, yes, will benefit the environment, but no doubt save money and the bottom line of the project, which no doubt is already pretty tight, as most margins are. So it all factors, it all matters. Tony, I suppose looking at the last point there, it's kind of why we're here today, and it's really looking at the power of integration now. And I think the power of integrated solutions and the benefits ultimately to our customers. And I suppose, coming from industry and having worked there for a while, I'd be aware, and I'm sure you guys see this as well, there'd be concern around tech, a little bit of, you know, a lot of companies have been burnt before, and you know, they've as a result, then there's a little bit of a, not standoffish, but more sort of concern around which digital solutions that they tend to opt for and tend to go for. So I think we're into a new space, as in companies like yourselves and the marketplace, companies like us, that are now open to integration. Like that in itself, I think, shows, or should show, customers the value of an integration, but also build confidence that we're all willing and we all actually want to collaborate and work together for their benefit.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. And I've been quite lucky over the last couple of years to visit some really interesting kind of seminars on, you know, tech in the construction industry and the future of it and how people see it. And the one thing that I got out of one recently was talking about the connected workplace on a construction site. You know, that is going to be the future, regardless of what people like, want, or need. That will be the future of a construction site. You're only going to get a connected construction site if you have integrated solutions along the way. You're never going to have that if you have, well, I'm using this bit of software, it doesn't talk to this bit of software, and I've got this sensor that doesn't talk to this sensor. It's never going to work. So by having all of that stuff connected, you're going to get people. And you mentioned, yes, people have been burnt, and I think that's part and parcel because they've become frustrated with the systems that are out there, because they're not open and because they're not connected. They get frustrated, and people can sometimes go, well, this is great, but it's pointless to me. I'm spending all this money and it doesn't really fit my needs. I need 4 or 5 different solutions to do that. When you all of a sudden get a solution that connects everything you want, and gives you the option to say, well, actually, I'm outgrowing this now. I need to now connect this type of solution in. That's a bit more powerful. You know, we've got some really good kind of metrics that we track in customers that use integrations with Procore. So we generally find that a lot of people that use Procore, if they just use Procore on their own, it's highly likely they're not going to stick around with Procore for the long term. You know, they'll dabble into Procore, see if it's worth them, and not go with it. Where we see a huge uptake in people working with Procore for the long term is people that have integrations in Procore and they connect all of their back end systems, because they start to then see the value of tech solutions in construction. And it's not that, it's not that they're trying to be tech savvy or anything like that. It's very much they genuinely see it's helping their workflows and helping them work on a construction site. And, we've had conversations with people about accounting solutions, for example, where, they've got one person sitting in an office, accounts payable, checking manually all the invoices coming in. And we showed this company a solution and said, well, you've got an integration there. You literally just click a button. Yeah. That's all you need to do. Literally on your computer, you click a button, the invoices will be automatically read. They'll be cross-checked against everything, and you'll be able to click a button and then make the payments. Yeah. And she said, I've literally saved half a day, nearly every other day, just because of tech. That's a huge impact on that, not that person. So I've kind of rambled on to something really different, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. It's more about having the solutions that gives people the confidence to work together with it.
No, absolutely. And I think it's our responsibility almost to build that confidence with our customer base, because I don't think they maybe are aware that companies like ourselves are as keen to collaborate, because we do see the value in it. And look, even from a sustainability, even from an ESG perspective, the vast majority of our customers have all signed up to very challenging targets. They might be net zero targets, whatever they might be. And the reality is, if they're going to achieve those targets and they're going to get to where they want to get to, integration between solutions like ourselves is critical.
Definitely.
To them getting there. So no, absolutely. And look, our customers have certainly seen the benefits and fed that back to us, which is great. And again, the ESG aspect to it is where we are, and it's important. But it's the streamlined process and just the amount of time saving and all of that. It's so much added value. But Tony, there's 45 minutes, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, and just conscious of the time. We could talk to midnight on a lot of this stuff.
Definitely.
Get the beer out, but I think just check to see if we've anything in the chat room there from questions. Nothing there yet. So guys, if there is any questions there, if you want to drop them in quickly, and myself and Tony will get to them. I think Tony will start to wrap up, and we'll take a look at some of the poll results just from that.
Yeah, that'd be
poll that we
interesting.
did So there we go. So 15% of you on today are well established with your reporting. 69% have just got started, but you've got limited reporting in place, and 15% have nothing in place, just getting started. And again, those figures are typical of what we would sort of see in the wider sort of sector at the minute, particularly just getting started.
That is interesting.
In terms of how they're capturing their performance, so there's 46% are of tech in place, 46 still on the spreadsheets, and 8% with other means. And then in terms of the biggest challenge, 54% saying capturing the data. Yeah,
the point.
8% centralizing it, which is critical. Obviously, it's one thing capturing it, but getting it all in the one place so they can actually analyze it. 38% saying staff awareness and understanding maybe being a bit of a challenge. So there's is that a question?
Yeah, I've just seen one coming. Yeah.
What is in place from SustainIQ which would enable seamless ESG reporting to benchmarks such as GRESB? So we purposely didn't align with any particular standard code of practice, because the industry now requires this information for so many different reasons. So I mentioned the finance teams, for example, they now need access to emissions data so they can report back to Companies House and HMRC every year with financial returns. We've got project teams reporting on BREEAM or LEED, and so on and so on. Then we've got lots of the bid teams needing access to it. So the data, the ESG data, is now needed by lots of different departments, lots of different teams for lots of different reasons. And so as a result, we didn't want to align with any particular standard or code of practice. That said, the vast majority of our customers are all reporting on different benchmarks. We've got companies reporting on GRI, for example. So there's lots of examples there which we can easily demonstrate and show how as long as the data is in the system within our reporting library, you can very easily then report to whatever benchmark that you need to report on. So hopefully that answered. Happy enough to, if you want to contact me after, we can take you through and actually show you that. Second one there is, what data flows between Procore and SustainIQ with the integration, and does it go both ways? So yes, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
At the minute, it would be site setup and vendor information mostly. So we'd be pulling a lot of stuff from Procore through and then equally pushing stuff back in. But plans are underway to deepen that further to include a lot of waste management and carbon emissions as well. So we'll keep you posted once that those new features become available as well. So there's another question. I'm interested in learning about how data is actually pulled from Procore and SustainIQ, such as waste. How is the data like waste transfer notes pulled from one system to another? So yeah, look, already in place for the waste, and the waste transfer notes are captured in SustainIQ, and they're actually pushed through to the document library in Procore. Which again streamlines the process. It means the project team has then got access to all of those documents within the Procore library as well. So, and again, happy to, if you contact after, we can take you through and show you how that actually works in real time as well. Okay, Tony, I think, and look, guys, if there's any more questions afterwards, please feed them through. And myself and Tony will get them, and we will.
Yeah, definitely.
We will get back to you over the next day or so as well. So, guys, just in terms of getting started, just to wrap things up here, if you're a Procore user already, brilliant. Jump into the Procore marketplace and do a search for SustainIQ, and you'll find us, and then take it from there. If you're not a Procore user or a SustainIQ user just yet, don't panic. A lot of this stuff is new to people. It can be overwhelming. So look, tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow, we will be sending out an email to everyone that attended. And within that, there'll be a 6-step guide to getting started on ESG. So that'll give you a few tips and pointers in terms of how to make a start. But certainly don't panic. We've got a window of opportunity here over the next year or so to get the process in place, so that once it really starts to kick in and bite, you'll have all the processes in place that'll ensure you've got the data that you need to hand. So that'll be coming out. And then Tony, I suppose just to wrap up, we're back on stage then at Digital Construction Week Construction Week DCW in May 17th and 18th at the London Excel, and we're actually doing a panel discussion on stage, I think on the 17th. And it's looking at the power of tech integrations to drive ESG success. So there's ourselves, there's obviously Tony from Procore, there's Julia from Index, who's another company in the Procore marketplace that we've also integrated with. And then we've got a shared customer, OD Group, who are also attending that day as well to talk about their experience working with the three of us to integrate the systems and pull the data through so that they can ultimately use that to drive success within their own business. So look, hopefully we'll see you at DCW. If not, please reach out to Tony or myself afterwards. We'll be more than happy to catch up and answer any questions that you might have. Okay, I think that's us, Tony, and we're on time for once.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
That never happens.
But guys, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and hopefully you found it useful. And yeah, look, you know where we are if you'd like to request any further information. Okay,
amazing.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers, Liam. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Cheers. Thanks, Tony. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye now. Bye.